project led by the Prince William Sound Science Center. Our partners include the UAF Alaska Sea Grant Extension Office, the Prince William Sound Audubon Society, who leads one evening a month, and also the Forest Service, who provides the building and the equipment. My name is Meadow Scott. I've recently taken over running the lecture series. If anyone has any ideas for presenters or subjects for the fall, that would be great. We take a break in the summer, but we'll resume again in the fall. So next week we have, I think, Aaron Cooper is going to do a presentation about the Forest Service's international connections. And there's also a lineup throughout the rest of April as well. So, and now we're going to take a little break from the hardcore science this week for the Girl Scouts trip to India.
Okay, we're just going to introduce ourselves for any of you that don't know us. Probably all of you know us, but we'll start over here with Sarah.
I'm Sarah Hefner.
I'm Casey Smike.
Jessica Smike.
I'm Gabrielle Brown.
Anita Smike.
Robin Peck.
Okay, so I guess you can turn off the lights. We are part of Girl Scouts and part of the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts. And they have this goal to enable girls and young women to develop their full potential to be responsible citizens of the world. And so what they've done is they've built 4 world centers, and they're building a 5th one right now in Africa. And the first one they built is in Switzerland, and that one focuses mainly on like outdoor skills, mountaineering skills. The second one they built was in England, where girl guiding started 105 years ago, a couple years after Boy Scouts started. And that one focuses mainly on kind of the history of Girl Scouts and also on London. It has lots of tours of all the places in London. Then they built the third one in Mexico, which focuses on like community service and Mexican culture. And they work with Habitat for Humanity doing projects all around their area in Cordova. The fourth one they built was in India, and it's actually 48 years old. And India focuses on teaching girls about leadership, and they have a lot of community partners where they do community service projects. So we decided that that would be a good way to end our 13 years of Girl Scouting, is to go to the India World Center. And we picked Christmas time, so we wouldn't miss as much school. And also because they had something called Gifts for Change, where we really would get to do a lot of community service projects. So they have 10-day sessions, and we signed up for a 10-day session. And most of you know me know that that wasn't enough. We had to go see some more of India while we were there. And I guess we tried to figure out, okay, what's the best way to describe India? And Lonely Planet called it bamboozling. It was their term for India. And we said it's like an assault on the senses. So the first few slides are just going to be how it assaulted our senses. And these are all pictures that we took. The stark beauty of Taj Mahal. It's all made out of marble and inlaid precious and semi-precious stones. The colors of India, beautiful saris, incredible handiwork and textiles. And jewelry, bangles that the women all wear. And Sarah fit right in. She already had these pants. And then the taste of India. It's like the wildest culinary adventure of your life, going through India. Usually when I go on trips, I lose weight. Not India. As you know, they use lots of spices. Every kitchen has spices in one of these containers with all their spices in it. And there's shops everywhere. Fresh vegetables, fresh fruits. This is like a meal that was $3. And it took 3 of us to eat it. These are momos, right, you guys? Really delicious. And the sweet shops everywhere. And then driving. It's the most chaotic driving I've ever seen in my life. Blowhorn on the back of every truck. And you hear horns blowing all the time. And they're not mad when they're blowing their horns, it's just to pass each other and let you know. And this is kind of traffic. No lanes, people, usually there's a cow on the road, bicycles, a bus trying to get through. And it's chaos, but it works. You're inches away from everybody, and we really didn't see, well, our rickshaw hit one person once. Most of the time you don't see people being hit. This is public transportation, and that is massive humanity. You're right next to everybody. Trains, buses. They watch out for each other. They push you on if you're not quite on. And then 1.2 billion people live in India. So you can imagine the cities. This is what it's like after, well, this is even before 5 o'clock, but shopping is quite something. Poverty, you see it everywhere. But the one thing about the people is, even though they're living in poverty, they give you a smile. They're happy to see you. Trash, I guess that's what bothered me the most. There's trash everywhere in India. But then there's cute puppies eating the trash. Sacred cows everywhere. People are washing their clothes in the same water the cows are drinking in. Toilets. Now this hits all your senses. Asian toilets, no toilet paper, and you just squat. This is a pretty clean one. Yeah, you can imagine. And the spirituality of India, this is a mosque, and at 5 times a day you can see this megaphone there. The prayer, the call to prayer is going on, so you hear that in all the cities. And then the Hindu religion, they have temples. You can hardly walk 1 block without seeing a Hindu temple. And the beloved people that have come from India, Gandhi. The Dalai Lama lives there right now. Lives up in the Himalayas. We went there. And the stark contrast between the Himalayas and then the deserts of Rajasthan this is near Pakistan. So real diverse. And the fort cities. There's huge forts all over India, and the architecture is amazing. And some more of the architecture. This is where the kings are buried. And then I'll end it with the Eastern culture versus the Western culture. There's a lot of change coming to India. Gabrielle caught that picture. I love that. So that's a little bit of how it assaults your senses. So when I started planning the trip, I always looked for good price tickets. Well, I found it on Malaysia Airlines. And we flew with Japan airline most of the time. It was $470 to get there from LA to Kathmandu. They didn't find it right into India, so we decided to go to Nepal. Really good food. Gabby got her ticket a little bit later, so she had a different flight than we did. So I found this really cute Moroccan guy. I said, you take care of her. And he just took it to heart. He changed his seat, so he was sitting next to her. And he talked to her for 8 hours. But Gabby was a little overwhelmed. And then he walked her to her next gate, made sure she was there. He stayed with her for a little bit before he went down and got his baggage, because that was the end of his trip. But he still is in contact with Gabby. I'm a matchmaker. Anyhow, it was very nice. So, Girl Scout motto is be prepared. Well, the girls had a lot. And I'll just tell you a few of the things that were in their packs that I found out. I think Robin had 4 rolls of toilet paper. Just 2, okay. And Sarah's always prepared with a big bag of extra food, which did come in handy. She had 2 boxes of truffles, a dozen truffles each. We had salmon. We had lots of things to give as presents that we brought from here. So we're prepared. So I'm going to let Casey tell you about Japan. Because we included Japan and had 17 hours.
Yeah, so we got a hotel in Japan, and as you can see, the bathrooms were very small compared to what we're used to. So there's Sarah as a comparison. So we went out to eat and had sushimi. And we got 4 different kinds of raw fish, and we figured out one was salmon and one was tuna. But we never knew what the other 2 were. But we ate them anyways, and they were good. And then these were like robes they gave us to sleep in at the hotel. And it was just kind of a room with 4 beds in it. But it was nice. And so the next morning at like 5:30, we got up and had a tour. And our guide took us to the most famous temple in Japan. And we got to watch a service with like monks and chanting and gongs going off. And they threw stuff in fires, and it was really cool to experience. And then we got to feed some koi fish. Our guide bought us a loaf of bread to feed them. And each of these fish costs $1,000, so an expensive pond. And then that was our Japan card.
So from there we flew to Kathmandu, and immediately, well, we spent the night there, and then the next morning we took a 5-hour bus to Chitwan National Park. So here's our bus station. We just pulled up to this parking lot, and the buses came. We loaded up and drove for 5 hours along through the streets of Kathmandu, and just crazy traffic, going through buses and people crossing the streets. Here's a building just stacked on each other, and power lines everywhere. So the drive, we went down from the mountains into the valleys, lower valleys, along steep cliffs, really curvy roads for 5 hours. And here's some of the sights along the way: the women cleaning dishes or washing their hair. And here's, you can see like some people who can afford cars versus the old traditional way. And along the way we'd stop and like stretch our legs playing hacky sack, and the kids would come up and play with us. Some of them were much better than us. They had their own hacky sacks, which is just like rubber bands tied together in a ball. So we got to interact with them. And we kind of cruised along the river to get to Chitwan National Park. So when we got there, we got picked up by this man who introduced himself to us as "I am funny man." So we told him that the rest of the trip. And this is his helicopter, because he says when he goes over the bumps, he gets lots of air. So his helicopter. So we piled into the back of his car with all our bags and drove through the village. There's this mustard fields. And then this is where we stayed, Rhino Land Hotel. And each room had its own animal, so here's Casey. And so this day, the day we got there, this was our 5th, we had 5 meals this day. And they fed us so much, lots of food.
And then
Yeah, and so the guide would finish off our meals.
funny man just took my fork. I said, I can't finish it. And I looked at him, do you want it? And he just takes my fork and eats the rest of the meal.
So the first day we got there, we got to go on a village tour, and these houses are made out of cow and elephant dung and bamboo with elephant grass roofs. And then here's a lady with her firewood and cow just walking through the village.
Oh my gosh.
And then along the way, we got to see our first wildlife, which is this wild rhino. They're just walking through the edge of the village. And then we got to see rhino. This is the government elephant sanctuary. So they have like 20 to 30 elephants here. The baby, and neither got to touch it. It came over and played with us, kind of. Oh, and so last year, 18 people in the village were killed by elephants, and about 7 were killed by rhinos. So
Wild rhinos, wild elephants.
yeah, so they do pose a threat. And then we got to take a tour of Chitwan National Park, which is the first national park in Nepal and Asia. It was made in 1973 and is 773 square kilometers. So after our walk through the village, we got to go to this culture show where they did a elaborate dance with sticks and had a man dressed as a peacock. Casey got to meet some boys from Nepal.
I don't think she saw the show.
This was a typical breakfast with toast, eggs, and potatoes, and then lots of milk tea. We drank like at least twice a day. So the next morning we get to go on a dugout canoe ride down the river. Well, along the way we got to see lots of birds and heard more about the history of the park. We also got to see our first crocodiles. This is a masked mugger that eats meat compared to the other kind that only eats fish. So there's the other kind of gharial crocodile. Here's the rapids from our canoe ride. And these guys are collecting building materials for the house. The government allows them to only take a certain amount out of the park. This is a white-belted kingfisher, some of the birds we saw along the way. And cattle egrets and cormorant. A heron, I think. And the ruddy shell duck, also known as a love duck because it's always in pairs. And they migrate from Siberia in winter in Nepal. And peacock, wild peacock. So after our canoe ride, we got to go on a 3-hour jungle walk. Started off with detailed explanation of what to do if we see like a rhino and how you're supposed to run zigzag to get away from it, or it's like a bear, or yeah, just how to get away from rhinos, tigers, elephants, or bears, and each one was different. It's hard to remember. So we got to go to 2 lookout towers. You can see how difficult it would be to zigzag away from a rhino. So in the park, there's 47 wild elephants, 120 Bengal tigers, several hundred rhinos, less than 100 sloth bears, 2 species of monkeys, the rhesus and the macaw, and 4 species of deer, including the barking deer. So along the way, we got to see a wild rhino again. And we got within like 20 feet of it, and we were like watching it. You can tell the guide's kind of getting nervous and looking around, and I'm looking around, and there's no trees to climb, and it's really dense jungle, and there's nowhere to way that we could zigzag. But finally, I kind of got scared and ran off.
I'm wondering if I'm going to have to call the parents.
This is our only sign of the tiger. The guide said it was from that morning, so it's kind of fresh. And then these are some masked mugger crocodiles. I didn't really see them at first, but I looked up and there they were, and then I saw Robin going down with a big stick towards them. She's trying to get a closer picture, but they ran off. So after our walk, we went on a jeep safari for several hours through the jungle, trying to see a tiger. This is a rhesus monkey. They have a long tail. We got to see the lesser adjutant storks. They're really big. There's about 6 of them up in this nest. A big termite mound. And then we got to see some monitor lizards hide in the tree. And lots of deer. We saw a ton of deer on this safari. And then halfway through, we stopped at this Gharial Conservation Breeding Center, which is for the crocodiles. And they have, they were about like 6 feet long, were the biggest ones, but they had little babies that were born this year. But some of them were born in the 70s, and they still live there. So these ones are vegetarians or eat fish, compared to the other ones that come into the villages at night looking for food. So you want to be careful.
How many kilometers?
Up to like 2 or 3 kilometers.
At night.
Inland.
If they don't get enough to eat.
So here's the sunset on our jeep tour. And the next morning, our last day in Nepal, we got to go on an elephant ride in our Indian elephant pants. So we had to climb up this ladder, and the elephants would back up, we get on this wooden sand thing. Only 4 of us. We went for like about an hour or 2 through the jungle. We crossed through some rivers. We got to see a lot of deer, but again, no tigers. We saw some peacocks and a lot of monkeys. Chickens, yeah, wild chickens. This was another group of Chinese, all in their matching hats.
So were you on a tour with a bunch of other people, or just?
They kind of just, we'd get in a group and go on an elephant, and they kind of just all wandered different directions and stuff. Like Anita and Jesse were on a younger elephant that didn't want to be around anybody else, so they kind of just.
So we were always by ourselves. Yeah.
So yeah, this is the stuff we were going through, and the branches would hit us. It was an interesting experience.
We had one really memorable quote from the canoe ride.
Oh, when we were in the dugout canoe, Sarah pointed to a bird and asked what was that, and he said, "Oh, that's a crow." And then he said, "The 3 things you'll see everywhere you go in the world are crows, potatoes, and Chinese people." Oh, and then our guide here was another character. He didn't speak very much English, but the main words he knew was like baby, lucky, no lucky, and he knew the animal names. So he did lots of different things with just those words. He told us, would name all the names and then say lucky. And then he'd say no elephant, no tiger, no this, no lucky. Trying to say that we could see everything, we could not. And yeah, explained his babies, he called us babies and the elephant's babies. So it was very confusing.
So after our elephant ride, we had to get to our bus for another 5 hours back to Kathmandu. So we loaded up in the helicopter and almost didn't make it because the car wouldn't start. So there's about 5 or 6 guys pushing it to get it started. And we loaded up. There's 10 of us hanging on or in the back of this car with all our stuff to get to the bus station. Yeah, so then we drove 5 more hours to Kathmandu and spent the night there.
And then we drove up these winding roads going up a mountain to Nargakot, and it was a really high elevation. We realized that the next day when we tried to run up a hill. And yeah, so that night we got there, it was this really nice kind of like hostel kind of environment that we were staying at, not really like a hotel. And they fed us a really awesome dinner, and it was very different food going up an elevation because they had yaks up there. So we had yak meat, also the milk tea had yak milk in it, or we had yak meat sausage, and then we had yak milk in our milk tea. So it was a little bit different. This is our room. It was really cold. I think I had like 5 blankets on that night. Very, very cold. The next morning we got up and walked up to the top, and we thought we'd be able to see Everest that morning, but as you can see, it was pretty rainy and cloudy, so we weren't able to, but it was still an amazing view. We had a guide for the day, a trekking guide, and he was planning on taking us on a trek, but we kind of took a different route because of the rain, like trails kind of fall apart with all the mud. So we took a different route and we walked through all these villages. He took us to a lot of temples, and really liked explaining about the Hindu culture, which we really tried to follow along with because it was really confusing, all the different gods and things. This is just walking through a village and, yeah, meeting kids, giving them hacky sacks and seeing lots of different
We brought
things.
20 hacky sacks to hand out.
Yeah. And you could tell some of the kids like didn't really have any belongings, if none, so they were really excited to be given something that was their own. This is, you can see how they dry corn husks. Oh, I pressed the other button. There's chickens, and it's a really beautiful view, just being up high and walking. The hawk, and yeah, this is going through to another temple, and kind of just the shopping district before then. Yep, more temples, learning all about every god and every story, and it was a lot. Anita made a friend who was at the temple on a rainy day, but it was really nice walking around. And then we went back to Kathmandu, busy, busy Kathmandu. So this is the streets in Kathmandu. So a lot of the time we would walk. It was raining and the streets kind of fall apart, but it was a lot of fun just walking around there, going shopping. Oh, right. So, our guide asked us if we'd like to go to the Monkey Temple, and we were like, oh yeah. And then he asked if we'd like to take a ride or if we'd like to walk there. We thought it was going to be kind of a short walk, but it ended up being a pretty long walk. And
It's an hour and a half there.
hour and a half, and it was like
in the rain
pouring down rain by this
and the
point.
muddy streets.
Yeah, the streets just completely fall apart, and we saw a lot of interesting stuff, like very polluted rivers, and just very different. Then we get there, and it was 200 steps up to the Monkey Temple. It was a lot.
And this was the same day we'd taken our trek to
Yeah.
hike.
So that was a long day. But the Monkey Temple is way up in this hill, and it's been completely taken over by monkeys. There's about 2,000 monkeys there, and you have to be careful not to make eye contact, or they might steal your things. And it was kind of weird, but it was really cool, and they're just everywhere. I mean, you couldn't look 3 feet past another monkey. Here's us, very drenched. You can imagine we had to pack up our stuff the next morning, so nothing was dry for
And
the
this is-
majority of the trip.
Before our walk back to the hotel.
Yes, we're still there. We still an hour and a half, probably 2 hours, because after that we went to, oh, here's us.
So was it warm out or was it cold?
Yeah, it's fairly warm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just really wet.
Yeah.
But definitely not
Extremely
warm.
dirty.
And muddy
Definitely
as
warm
can
going up
be.
the stairs.
Yeah.
The stairs.
The monkeys are following us
Yeah.
at this point.
So I mean, at one point there were probably at least 20 monkeys like walking along.
It was kind of scary.
Yeah, it was weird. But after that we went to the Buddhas. Oh yeah, and we passed a crematory, so that was another assault of your senses, seeing that and smelling that, and yeah, just all sorts of interesting stuff. These Buddhas are 40 feet tall, so we went to see those before we walked back. And the next day we went to Durbar Square in Kathmandu. And this is another place that lots of temples, lots of history that our guide really wanted to tell us, and usually we were really distracted by the pigeons or yep, the pigeons, eating the pigeons. We made lots of friends. We were the kids were another favorite, and puppies. So
I had to tell the guide, he said, you want to go in the temple? And
the kids were all no.
like, they
We were
wanted
usually, yeah,
to.
yeah. We listened to a lot of history, but we were usually distracted by puppies. And here's a building that I believe one of the princes lived in. There's a museum now. And then all the short doorways. Things weren't quite built for Sarah. And then for lunch we went up to this really beautiful rooftop restaurant and could see all over Kathmandu. And behind Sarah you can see the Monkey Temple. You can see it really good in this one. Right here.
And we were way over, we were in some building way over here.
Like
That's where
there.
we walked in the
And
rain
we
the
walked
night before.
here and then up to there. So that was neat seeing that. Kathmandu is a very busy place, but really fun. And here's just sights that we saw while walking around Kathmandu or driving. This is a store, just a wall of things. And this wall is really deep and yeah, just crazy. Just like that. A furniture store. And there's multiple tailors lined up with the old pedal sewing machines. And here's, they're preparing for a wedding, and it's a really big thing. So they're frying all the food. Here's these guys that are cutting meat. And they had like, I don't know how to explain it. It was like a knife that was sitting on the ground, and you pushed the meat on it, and it would split it in half. So there's tons and tons of food. Here's the pots they're making the food in for the wedding celebration. That was neat to see. And then we did lots of shopping. Found a yarn store, and here's working with wires.
I was watching this guy
Yeah.
while they were shopping. He has, well, in the next one, you can see his big wire cutters. He was actually cutting wires up there. He scared me to death.
Yeah. Interesting things everywhere. And so, yeah.
So then we flew from Kathmandu to Delhi, and our plane was late. And we didn't have too many things like this, but this was like 3 hours late. So we arrived in Delhi at 2 in the morning, and I had ordered a van with a driver to take us to Taj Mahal, and they were meeting us at the hotel at 7. By the time we got to the hotel, it was 3. We had to get up at 6 and take off for Taj Mahal. Well, we didn't get too far down the road, maybe 2 hours down the road, and and the van broke, our first day in India. And he doesn't speak English, the driver, so I'm sitting there, but he brings the fan belt over to me, so I knew what was the matter. And then, so he's sitting there, and he doesn't know quite what to do, and then this truck pulls up, and all these men get out. And they had kind of some uniforms on, so I thought, oh, maybe they're military, maybe they're police, I don't know. So we just all sitting in the car, these guys are sleeping, I think.
I was awake.
You were awake. And you just trust, okay, it's going to be okay. And then they start yelling at each other and arguing with each other. And finally, the guy gets in, and he starts driving without the fan belt. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. He's driving kind of slow, and he stops. He gets off the highway and then stops somewhere, and then leaves us, you know, and walks off. And he comes back in a little while with this little tiny Indian guy that's totally grease covered, so he knew he was a mechanic, and he looked, and they worked on it, and they couldn't fix it. So then he gets back in the car, drives some more, and we stop here, and we're almost to Agra where the Taj Mahal is. And I kind of find out because this guy jumps in the car and says, I'm going to be your guide today. And I'm like, well, I didn't order a guide today, but he goes, I'm a friend of the driver's, and I'm an in-training guide for Taj Mahal, and he's going to drop us off there, and then he's going to come back and fix the car. So he spoke English, he guided us around Taj Mahal, it was wonderful. And the van was fixed in time to take us back to Delhi. So here's Taj Mahal, the entrance to Taj Mahal. And it's incredible just getting to this point. You're just assaulted by everybody selling you things, want to be your guide, want to do this, want your money. But then once you get in here, it's pretty good. And it's just it is the most beautiful building I've ever seen in my life. This is the entrance into the Taj Mahal. And this took 22 years, 20,000 people to build. And it's a memorial to the emperor's wife that died in childbirth. And it was their 6th child that she was delivering. And he loved her so much, he wanted to build this. And in this picture, the 4 pillars look like they're going in, but actually it's all extremely symmetrical. Every angle you look at it from, it looks the same. You can be behind it and look at it, and it's built to be exactly perfect. Except for the towers on the outside lean a little bit to the outside so that if there's ever an earthquake, they wouldn't like fall into the Taj, to the main building, and destroy it. And he had workers from all over the place, and a lot of Muslims. So they built a mosque on one side, and he said, well, it's not symmetrical if I don't build one on the other side. So they have them, one's not used and one's a mosque, just so the whole thing's symmetrical. And there's just beautiful carvings of the marble and then inlay work. And this is everywhere. So the marble's carved in flowers. He made it to look like paradise. And this is semi-precious stones all inlaid in the marble. And he also built it up on a like pedestal so that the only thing in the background would be sky when you're looking at it, just for visual. I could just stare at that forever. This is Arabic, and it looks like it's all exactly the same, right? The same size. Well, they did this, it got larger and larger. This part, as they built up, these letters are much larger up here than they are down here. But it gives you the optical illusion of it all looking the same. I don't know how they did that, but it looks all the same. And this is another optical illusion where it doesn't really look flat, but it is. Everyone wanted pictures with us at the Taj Mahal. This shows you how the tall Sarah is. Let me go that. But anyhow, the Indian women are very small, and men. And then our guide took us to a marble store where we've got a few things that we bought from the marble store, and that's all inlaid, and showed us how you inlay the stone into the marble. It was an amazing place. So in Agra, they close the Taj Mahal every Friday and clean it. So it's as clean as when it was built 400 years ago. The marble's just beautiful. And they also don't allow any industry in that city. And they keep the artists, they don't tax the artists at all because they're trying to keep the arts alive there. And so we learned all that from our guide that just hopped in the car. So I paid him something, you know. He said, if you like me, you can tip me.
Anita, one tidbit, during
What's
the
that?
Indo-Pakistan War in 1971, they had a lot of blackouts in India, and they covered the Taj dome because it was so bright.
Wow.
Full moon nights would be.
Oh my gosh.
Did you guys go down into the tomb?
You couldn't go down into it, but you went in the room and went around and looked down.
Yeah, you
Because
Yeah. Did you?
I went in
went in it?
120-degree weather and
Yeah, they
it's
won't allow
stifling.
you to do that. So then the last part of this is the van was fixed. He picked us up 3 hours back to Delhi, but we're running kind of late. We have to catch a train that takes us like 12 hours up into the mountains. So we hit rush hour traffic. The guy's trying to get us through it. I lost 10 years of my life. These guys are sleeping. And it was absolutely insane. We're weaving in and out of everything, and all of a sudden, you know, I'm holding on. As Dana knows, I spaz out when I freak out. My hands go like this. Well, I'm hanging on, so I'm not going to do this and hit this guy. And then a puppy walks out into the road. And everyone's screeching and going this way, and I just wham! I was like, ah! And he looks at me like, we made it to the old Delhi train station, and that is something else. This is not the old Delhi train station. It's like covered with people sitting everywhere. We was just packed, and I had to find out which platform we were on. I couldn't find anybody who spoke English, and we got to this platform, and we couldn't sit down. We just stood there, and everyone was staring at us. They're standing there just like this for half an hour, all huddled together, and it was the right train. And I was so thankful. And we had a little berth. We were in second class there, so we paid a little extra money so we could have our own place to sleep. And those were the bigger beds. Sarah and I took the little ones. That's our bed, and she slept underneath me there. But by that time, we slept really soundly. And Gabrielle didn't drink water all night, so she wouldn't have to use this toilet. This was rated, like 10 being the worst, this was rated a 9. It was pretty bad.
We had already been in India for a while now, so like a 9 out of 10 in India is like really bad things. Yeah.
And it's very, yeah.
Yeah, there's no sink and you can see the train tracks underneath.
So again, each time I say a van with a driver picked us up, it's just like that white one that was in India. I arranged for vans with drivers. It could take 6 people. It was perfect, having just the 6 of us. And we didn't have to split up, which would have scared me. So here we go. off to go up into the Himalayas now. And this is what traffic was like. And bridge damaged, but you drive over it anyhow. And Gabby's going to take over.
Yeah, so we're back in the mountains. Going up into the Himalayas. So this is where the Tibetan government is still functioning, and where the Dalai Lama lives. So these mountains, there's still every year 2,500 Tibetan refugees sneak over. And it's illegal right now, but they're still trying to escape the terrible things that are happening in Tibet right now because they got taken over by China. Yeah. So we're way up high. McLeod Ganj is the place.
How was the money exchange?
Pretty good. In Nepal, it was like 100 or so rupees per dollar.
Yeah, and then India
India
was
was
like 60. But I mean, things were super cheap. I've never traveled anywhere that was so cheap, and you kind of get used to it after a while. Like I got home and like I bought this one scarf, and I was like, oh, this was probably like $11, and then I realized, oh, it's really not that much money. But there it was like the most expensive thing I bought the whole trip. Here's where we stayed. It had absolutely amazing food. It was so good. Here's the room. Yeah, one of like the best chefs in India she was. And
She has a cooking show.
yeah, so here's our room. Nice little coffee. And here's walking around that town. Just a beautiful temple behind us and all the interesting shops. And then here's the main temple that the Dalai Lama goes to. And this is where they keep all the Tibetan manuscripts, so all the texts. And 75% of all Tibetan texts and things were destroyed, so everything that they have left they're trying to keep here and protect it. Here's where the monks, that's where the monks live, and they're sitting out with their iPads. That's pretty great. And yeah, monks everywhere. And it was really neat to talk to a few. And there's also like the famous doctor that the Dalai Lama goes to, and people travel from all over the world to come to this doctor. We were reading about him, and I guess you give him like a pee sample, and he can completely tell you what's wrong with you, and it sounded very interesting and neat. We walked up to a waterfall, had a whole pack of dogs that came along with us. Beautiful. And then that night we wanted to go see the sunset. So we split into 2 different rickshaws, so 3 people could fit in each. And we went up into this point. You can see what a beautiful sunset. We all made it. Only one of our rickshaws broke down going up one of the hills. And yeah, here's the sunset. Pictures.
Beautiful Gabby.
Flattering India fans. And yep. And then the next day we just did kind of like a self-guided trek around. Followed the water pipes that were going everywhere. Lots of farmlands. It was really beautiful, way different than, just everywhere we went was completely different from the last place. Just walking around. And then we run into women carrying these huge bundles of firewood down the hill. We ran into some men too, and they weren't carrying anything. But these were totally amazing. And then the next day we walked down to our bus and took the craziest bus ride ever. I had to force myself to sleep because I knew if I was awake for more than a couple minutes I'd get sick. Going down the mountains, just flying, it was totally insane. Luckily it was at night. We just slept, but yeah, we made it. Oh yeah, and Jessica was sick.
I only stopped once in 12 hours.
Yeah, so yeah, we were glad to get to the Girl Scout Center after that.
So this is Sangam, the Girl Scout Center in India. Where's the laser button? Okay, so this is the main area. So they've got a pool. They're trying to renovate it since it's kind of busted and leaking and such. And this is the view from the water tower. It's quite interesting. All sorts of trees. There's birds everywhere, and they don't shut up. And they've got some gardens in the back. They've got like a couple Buddha statues, one in the front, one in the back, but they're set up so they're not facing each other through the breezeway. And one of the volunteers said this is so they won't like talk to each other and get distracted from keeping an eye on Sangam and such. I thought it was interesting. This is the main gate. Sangam has a lot of like purple and white colors, some gold too. It's a very lovely place, very peaceful. Yes, the guys all wear purple. This is our security guard. They have one at all times, and everyone thought he was particularly cute, but apparently he's a bit of a flirt, so. We had a welcome ceremony. We were the only troop there. There were like 4 or 5 volunteers in training who had shown up around the same time and or a little earlier or something. And this lamp was donated by the Sri Lankan Girl Guides, and as part of it, we were given these lays and Hari Kumkum, which is the marks on the forehead. It's kind of a symbol of like welcoming and friendship and such. And yeah, so here's our welcome ceremony. The flags up there are like the flags of all countries. They've got guides or volunteers or staff from at the moment. So yeah, a good lot of folks. This is Alice. She's one of the volunteers in training from Japan. We had a little culture night and got to know everyone. And these are Allison and Ellie from Australia and the UK respectively. And this is Joan from Canada. She brought maple butter. That was a huge hit with everyone, even the wannabe vegan. And here's our culture presentation. We were all dressed up as Cordovans. And here's our setup. We got our smoked salmon and lagoonberry jam and truffles and badges and such. And this is like a Fuling Nagar and Arawati Road, which is the area right around Sangam. And here's a guy making shoes, just along the road. This woman has worked with Sangam before, and she's lived in Pune, which is the city it's in, like I think about her whole life. And she's always really happy to see the folks around and brings us into her home and talks a bit. And we were sent to do quite a few scavenger hunts, which included us going to like this hot chip stand where we got some Bombay mix that was like addictive. And yeah, more folks on motorcycles. Sometimes they'd have like huge packs off to the side, or like 4 people all squished onto one motorcycle. Jesse was making friends with folks.
These ladies are washing laundry just down the street from Sandy.
We've just taken all these pictures of them naked and then.
Yeah, we tried to share some food, like we ended up sharing some like candies and bananas, and then the staff and volunteers told us that we're not supposed to do that since we have all the Sangam gear, and we don't want them to associate Sangam with like food or us giving them food and harassing other Girl Scouts. But they seem fairly nice folks. They like to have their pictures taken. Gabby was more than happy to watch. Oh yes, and we found kittens. And a couple of kids who were playing with the kittens. More traffic. We took a lot of rickshaws, and yeah, this is the around Pune scavenger hunt. So we got a bag with places to go and split up into a couple different rickshaws, and we were off.
That was hard for me. Say goodbye, girls. We'll see you in 4 hours.
This is the area where Gandhi was held. Very lovely, interesting place. And yeah, he was held in this room with his wife, and I think his secretary was nearby. These are the graves of his wife and his secretary, whom he loved like a son.
And they both died while he was there. He was there only 2 years, and both his wife and his secretary died.
And yeah, his ashes are on site too. And this is one of the temples. I think, is it a pretty popular one in Pune? Very interesting. We got in a bit of trouble because we forgot to take our shoes off.
So me and Casey and Sarah were sent to a park, and we were just sitting there enjoying the sunshine, and this one guy came up to us and was like, oh, we have this group of 50 students, ages I think it was like 10 to 16, and we'd like you to come talk to them. So we went over there, and they completely surrounded us, and they asked us, you know, what's your favorite thing about India? And Casey said, the people and the food, and they all applauded her, and then they wanted pictures with us, and there's me and Casey. We stand out pretty well. So.
And then there's like a street fair going on, and so this is a bag of popcorn. And they had little mini Ferris wheels that are like man-powered. I think they hang on them to spin them around, and so the little kids can do that every once in a while.
Yeah, we met up with the other volunteers for dosas, which are these. The big round ones are potato, and this is the stuff inside. And it's really good. And
And then we also learned a lot about the Indian culture while we were at Sangam. this lady Mina explained to us how arranged marriages work there, and it was interesting to hear from their perspective. They don't think it's a bad thing at all. And some of the other things we did some we tried some dancing. We weren't really good at that, and we did some art. This is called Worley art. We had a lady come in and give us a lesson on this, and since it was near Christmas time, a lot of us created nativity scenes. It's just using basic shapes to do artwork. We went sari shopping, and this was super overwhelming. None of us really wanted to buy a sari, so it was a little bit stressful because they really wanted us to buy it. We didn't want to, but they had us try on the saris anyways, and we got them professionally wrapped. And here's Casey and Gabby rocking the saris. And then another thing that's big there is bangles. All the women wear bangles just to dress up. And so you can see they're in every color. Then we got professional henna done, and these ladies did it super quick. This took them a minute or two. Some of them were even talking on the phone while they did this. And we all tried to wrap our own saris. As you can see, it didn't work out too well.
So you can buy them?
No,
They had
these were extras that they had
Oh,
there.
I'm sorry. At the Girl Scouts.
Yeah.
Some of us
We-
gave up and changed.
Yeah, we do. This is the sari that we did buy. This thing that's on the table. we haven't used it to wear. Then we all got to change out, and we had a traditional maha dinner, which they have when they're celebrating weddings. And we made rangoli art, which is sand art. It's super complicated. You do all these patterns just dropping sand on the ground with your fingers. And then they served us a whole plate of all these different traditional foods. It was delicious. You have to eat everything with your hands though, which was kind of hard. So we ended up eating a lot of the bread to be able to get everything else off the plate.
With your right hand.
But yeah, you have to make sure you eat with your right hand, because if you don't have toilet paper, you wipe with your left hand. And we went shopping. We got a lot of people go shopping after work, and it's just crazy overwhelming, especially in a big city like this. As you can see, there's just massive amounts of garlic.
The big tall piles of bread.
The big tall piles of red stuff is the powder that they put on your forehead.
Sugar powder that they like mix it.
Yeah. All sorts of fruits and vegetables, weird ones that we haven't seen. Sugar cane. And chickens. There's raw meat just out there. So you can see how busy the streets were at night. It was hard to even stay with the group. There's so many people there. And then this is public transportation. We took a bus back to Sangam that night, and everybody packed on there. A couple of us weren't on there, so people helped us out, pushed us in, had the bus wait for us. And we also went to some young girls' houses for dinner one night, and they served us a delicious meal. They told us all about their arranged marriages and love marriages and what they were doing in school. And it was interesting. They didn't speak a ton of English, but it was a good lesson in communication. And they kept serving us more and more. They wanted us to eat a lot, and they made us eat first before them by ourselves, which was a little bit awkward, but we kind of joined in at the end. This is Robin.
But yeah, the main thing we were there for is working with the community, and so there's this automobile company called Bajaj that its founder was actually like Gandhi's 5th adopted son, and he really took the giving back to the community and empowering people to heart. And this little like Christmas party we did on Christmas Eve was for these kids who went to an after-school program and were kids of the workers. So we did some activities like bubbles that Sarah and Joan set up. face painting was super popular, and yeah, a lot of kids did it, and they got friendship bracelets. So much face painting goes.
But did you guys bring the face paint stuff, or was that some of that thing where?
They had face paint supplies at St. Gale. Yeah. It's one of the things they do. Tried to teach him some like square dancing. We only had a little bit of time for it, but it went pretty well for a short time. Yeah, we brought a parachuting balls to bounce around. And we did just some like simple games like tag and other things like that. And made Play-Doh with the kids, so each of them got to take home a little thing of Play-Doh. They were all really excited to like get involved with everything. It was amazing. Yeah, Casey made some friends. And the day after Christmas, we came back to work with about 20, 25 teenage girls. The 24th was 60 to children to 120. And so we did some like icebreakers to help like get everyone to know each other. And we made snowflakes and say, hey, we're coming from Alaska. Make some snowflakes. They turned out really well. Girls liked it. And the folks asked us to talk about like puberty and adolescence and such, since it's kind of a bit of a taboo, and they wanted to help like break that and make sure the girls like knew what was going on with their bodies, since a lot of them were in the young preteen area. And so I took over that part and tried to make it like an art lesson to help. So like, and we gave some like closing remarks, and yeah, the girls were amazing speakers. It was like they blew us out of the water with what they were saying. The girl in the yellow is Nikita. She was like super bright, wanted to become a doctor or
That's
a
the one,
lawyer.
the other one.
Yeah, the girl on the right wants to go to Harvard for college.
Yeah. Yeah, it was amazing. I think we learned just as much from the girls as they taught us. Like Nikita, she taught me all about how arranged marriage work. And I realized it's a lot easier to explain that than she wanted me to explain how love marriage works. And she's like, well, how long do you date? I'm like, any amount of time? Like, how does it all work? Like, I don't know. It's not really a set thing like arranged marriage.
So some of the other activities we did around Christmas time, we learned about the different festivals that go on in other religions at the same time as Christmas. We made latkes for Hanukkah, and yep, that was another extra meal. We played dreidel. We won all this candy in the middle, and that was
In India,
You can hear the Muslim
got the
prayer in the background.
Muslims' prayer going on in the background. All these birds in this tree, over the tree, shooting.
So we do this every morning and evening, like right about 6 or about 9.
The Muslim prayer.
The call to prayer was around the same time as meals and snacks, so we hear it in
Kingdom,
every time we eat some.
World Center, palm trees.
around the center. There was like, on one side there was like a club kind of thing, so at nights there would be really loud music, then that prayer would go off, and the birds would go off at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., and then we had traffic. And there was an ammunition factory on one side. Yeah, an ammunition factory, so you hear guns shooting all the time. But it was actually pretty peaceful inside Sangam compared to the rest of the surrounding streets.
It's like a little bubble. It's amazing.
you there at Sangam?
10 days at Sangam. It's still on the video.
Try to do it.
Oh, here we go. Okay. So, on Christmas Eve, we got to go Christmas caroling, which was fun. We dressed up, and the whole staff went. We had a big following around us, and we sang all the traditional Christmas songs we sing here. And some of the other Indians were trying to read off the page and sing along with us. And at one point, we were singing right next to a mosque that they were worshiping in. And then Christmas morning, I stayed up late and made stockings for everybody. They were just little paper stockings with candy in them. So we woke up to stockings on Christmas morning.
Find the water tower, that's apparently a tradition.
Yeah. So we got up to see over the city. We saw the sunrise over the city. And the sun's a huge orange glow. Not Casey's hair, but the one in the background.
You just look right at it and it doesn't even hurt.
And then Sangam likes to build long-term community partnerships. So they've been building a partnership with this place called Meher. And on Christmas Day, we went to Meher, and it is a organization that takes in children who are on the streets and widowed women, mentally challenged people, and it gives them a place to eat and sleep, and it educates them to hopefully make them more independent, and so that they can go out into the workplace. And so we had about 600 people there that day, and it was just a whole Christmas celebration going on. So they did all these amazing dances in their traditional attire. They were all really dressed up. They welcomed us here with chai, which was a normal thing. I feel like everywhere we went, we were welcomed with chai. And we got a tour of the facility. So here's everyone's eating spaces. We looked at where they learn, where they sleep. And then there was an old age home. So this is just for people who would probably normally just die on the streets, but they bring them in here, and they meet people, they feed them, and these people seem pretty happy there.
You can see how skinny.
Yeah. We brought our face painting things again, ended up painting a bunch of arms, and everybody wanted their arms painted, but we couldn't quite get all 600 of them. You can see how beautiful all of their outfits were. All the dancers wore outfits like this.
This is a little girl that was sitting next to me, and I talked to her about Alaska. She just wanted to talk to me, and then she looked at my earrings. Any of you recognize these? Paula Payne made them.
Yep.
And she looked at them and she took them out, and she took hers out and she put hers in my ear, and put Paula's in her ear, and at first I was like, oh, I love those earrings, and then I was like, oh goodness, and I was like, Merry Christmas, and then she saw pictures of Alaska that I had a little album, and she said, will you please take me home? And I said, no, I can't, but it was really sad, but really neat. I sat with her the whole time, and there's the earrings she gave me.
And then on Christmas Day later, they told us to come dressed up in green and red or something Christmas-like, but we didn't really bring green and red clothes, so we were like, we have all these extra bed sheets. So I did the nativity scene. And you can see it, a shepherd and angel. And then we have a king following, or a wise man following a star, bearing some frankincense, and there's Joseph in the background. And we also decorated the dining hall for Christmas dinner. So we made all these decorations, and we tried to eat sort of a traditional, what we'd eat here, but it ended up being potatoes, chicken, salad. It was pretty good.
And then we sat on Santa's lap. We did a little gift exchange, so Santa gave us each a present. This is one of the ladies that was there directing the program. And then, so we were there 10 days, and then we were sad to leave. This is at the very end. We all got our certificates of participation and a little pin that you can only get at the center. And we took an overnight car to Aurangabad and slept in a hotel there for a little bit. And we went out for breakfast next morning. We all got breakfast for about 20 cents each. The banana and samosa, which were super spicy because it was street food. We were normally eating stuff in restaurants that was made for foreigners.
Really good though.
Yeah, and then we went to this amazing fort that up at, this whole thing is a fort, and up at the top is where they were trying to defend. So the whole way up there, we went through this system of defenses. We had to scale a wall. No, just kidding. This is extra. That was off the path. A lot of the doors were built with this, not this one, but they were built with spikes or at weird angles so that elephants couldn't attack through them. And there were monkeys everywhere. And again, we're trying not to make eye contact with them so they don't steal our things. And of course, everybody's taking pictures of us. We thought the sign was interesting because people there aren't supposed to, but a lot of the people gave us babies, so that was incentive to take picture with them. To take photos with that, to take photos. And there's a lot of old cannons still
Don't
there.
read that sign.
Don't touch it.
Don't obey the sign.
There were several moats on the way up, a dry moat and a wet moat.
This is like Lord of the Rings, trying to get
Yeah,
to
they
the top.
described it as something out of a Lord of the Rings book. And then there were these caves, and we could see in the caves because we had flashlights, but the people back then probably didn't. And these caves are so intricate, and they were made to confuse you and make you fall off a cliff. And so that if people were trying to get up to the top of the fort, they would probably not be able to get through these caves.
And I didn't have a cell phone, and these guys did, and I was tripping and getting behind, and then I got behind, I was pitch black. I had to wait till other people came on the phone.
And this was all built in the 11th century, so really, really old.
We made it to the very top. There was a lot of stairs. It was probably half an hour up or more. And we got a beautiful view of the landscape around there. And then these are Ellora Caves, which are one of the top 10 sites to see in India, and it's a World Heritage Site. And that this big one here, it was built from the top down, so there's no room for error there. They're just carving right into the rock. And somehow they made this whole intricate design with these life-size elephants. And then this biggest one is the largest monolithic sculpture in the world. And there's also temples in all of these. Are places to worship for Buddhism, Hinduism, and Jainism. So there's 34 temples altogether, and they're split between the three religions. And you can see just every part of the structure has detail on it. And paint. There's still paint from, it was built between the 8th, it was built over a span of 500 years. And here, these are some huge sculptures. This was a music room. Apparently had good acoustics for music. And then we visited the baby Taj, which after seeing the regular Taj Mahal was not super impressive. It's basically built the same way, except for it doesn't have the lime mortar finish on the outside. So it's not as, it doesn't look as clean, and it's not as well taken care of. But we still everyone asked us to take pictures there also.
People didn't ask to, it was just constant.
Yeah, you would see people like sneaking pictures
Yeah.
of you as you walked along,
Yeah.
trying to make funny faces. We going to a Persian market, but we ended up going to the Prozone Mall. It was like a super modern mall and nicer and cleaner than ones we have here. We found this Cold Stone like ice cream for $1 and Domino's pizza, so Casey and Gabby were really excited. And then we flew to Jodhpur, but our flight was super delayed, so we were sleeping in the airport for a couple hours.
So we finally made it, and we had a zipline tour set up, but we were like hours late for that, and the zipline place closed at 5, but we decided we'd just try to go for it anyways. So we drove as fast as we could there, and then ran to the tour place, and it was like 5:30, but we begged them, we're like, please, can you take us? So the guys were really nice and decided they'd do one more tour for us. It was really fun. There's like 5 different zip lines. And so we got an awesome view of this fort. Is it Comics Frozen? It's frozen. Just wait, it'll catch up. Yeah, this is another fort. There's forts everywhere in Rajasthan. And it was sunset when we were here, so it was super beautiful. Inside of these forts is basically just like shopping markets filling all the streets.
Or like another one we went to was a whole town inside of it.
So that's, it's inhabited, I mean, there's people there, living there.
Yeah, some people live inside of the forts.
And the forts are also, a lot of them are still active, so they're like still ready to fight off. Because it used to be really unsafe, it's right on the border of Pakistan, but now it's safe.
Moving forward on the computer. And are you clicking on there?
Any other questions so far?
How big is that compared to some? It looks.
I mean, you can see like the windows and there's stories. Each one of those. And yeah, I mean, it's up on the mountains. They're massive. Like we ran like, what, like 5 to 10 minutes through that fort to get to the zip lining place, so.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
don't
pretty
think
big.
the zip lining place is terribly far from the entrance.
I don't know, Meadow, do you want to pull up that other one?
Sure. I'm gonna turn a little bit of light.
I've got it on her computer, we can scroll it if it's.
Does-
Does it say what it
Exit out of
says?
it.
Huh?
Exit out.
Exit and start off the video.
How much longer do you have left?
We've got we got a camera tour and.
Probably 10 minutes.
So Anita, I have to unplug.
Let me just try this one thing.
Okay.
One thing I forgot to mention was when we were in the first place on the mountains in Nepal, we had this little van that we all fit into, and the seats were facing both ways, so it was just tiny, tiny. And we realized after going up the first hill, it couldn't get us up the hills. So each hill we went up, half of us would pop out, drive up and run up. And yeah, just a lot of the great stories are definitely transportation. It's always different and crazy. Oh, we'd like go on
They have a meter
across
price,
town,
but
and it'd be like maybe a couple bucks.
But you could try to bargain a little bit. It was probably got really ripped off. Because
Oh yeah, they would try to. You talk to them, they'd be like meter price. They're like meter price plus 30. And you'd be like, what plus 30? And they're like, oh no, I'm traffic. Yeah, and you'd be like, no thanks. Okay, meter price.
So there's 4 world centers, right? And have all of you guys gone to all?
My mom's the only one who's been to all of them.
Have you gone to any of the other ones?
She's been. I've been to all of them except the London one.
And then we've been to all of them except the Mexico one.
So you still got work ahead of you.
One more.
And they're building the fifth one, sounds like.
Yeah, well, Africa's our next place.
Anita, do you want me to turn this one on, or?
Yeah, the kingfisher, we would sometimes see blue plastic bags and get really excited that it was a kingfisher. Yeah.
Now it's just garbage.
Congratulations, you've spotted the wild piece of trash.
Hey, while we're waiting, whatever happened to the clipboard and the sign-in sheet? Does anyone have that under their chair? It was going around.
So while we're waiting, we also have cookies. We could pass around.
We're almost there.
Has this been around?
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Well, I want to get over
Alright, good. So now this is the zip lining. So we zip lined over the fort and the blue city of Jodhpur. And you can see like a lot of the buildings are painted blue. I don't really know why, but Robin matched them. It was really beautiful. Yeah, it was.
And by being late, we actually got to zip line during the sunset. It was pretty neat.
And then the fort, they light it up at night and it's super pretty. And this is the town of Jodhpur. So our driver dropped us off on the outskirts of town, and then we took rickshaws in and went to this restaurant, went up like 10 flights of stairs to the rooftop, and saw this whole view of the fort all lit up, and we were served a really nice dinner. That was awesome. And then we drove like, it took a long drive
Well,
to
this is
Dawson.
another drive. These girls slept through the drives. They were pretty exciting. But since we were late getting there, we were late leaving, and we had a hotel in the last big city we were going to visit. And we got there at 2 in the morning after a drive, and I tried to keep this guy awake, so I talked to him all night, and he stopped at midnight, invited me into his friend's place, and we had dinner at midnight. The girls were still asleep in the van, and met these people, and then we started getting all these military camps, because we're getting near Pakistan at this point, and then you can't go into Jalsama, the city, without checking in with the military, so they're checking the van, looking in at the girls, and everything, and then the one guard comes up to me and goes, and I had my pigtails, and says, nice hair. I was just like, it's 2 in the morning. We get to the hotel, it's totally locked up. And so our driver was all concerned, so he goes, he's just pounding on the door, and finally someone gets up, and this guy's like, just half asleep. There's people sleeping on the couches in the lounge, and people everywhere. And I can tell, and he looks at me, because there's no room at the inn. I'm like, he goes, well, come in, and so then he goes downstairs, and he opens up this door, and you can see there's people all sleeping, but it's so dark you can't see who. There's 2 beds left. And he gets some blankets and throws them down, and so all 6 of us just sleep right by the door for 3 hours. And
We didn't know who we were sleeping by. It was kind of sketchy.
we had no idea what room we were sleeping in or anything. Yeah, so then the camel driver picks us up, that I had arranged this camel trip. It's New Year's Eve day, and Casey will tell you about that.
So we drove into the desert and stopped here, and they made us a nice fire and breakfast while we waited for our camels to arrive. These were 2 guys that were also on the tour with us, who we became pretty good friends with.
Like an electrical engineer and a physical therapist. We joked that we'd be okay. If anything happened, we have a doctor right there.
Where were they from?
They were from that town.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, they just went along because they wanted to do something fun
For New Year's. So we mounted our camels, which was kind of difficult.
Scariest part of the trip.
Yeah, they kind of go up on their front knees and then stand up super fast, and yeah, it's hard to hang on.
Very, very tall animals.
And those are our bedrolls on the back. Those weighed probably like 30 pounds. And then we had all our food and everything. It was really hot this day. We all got pretty sunburnt. And in the middle of the desert, there's this little kind of village with a bunch of kids playing. So we tried to teach them how to play hacky sack. Gabby taught them how to high five and pound it. lunchtime, we just would stop, get off our camels. They'd cook us a meal over the fire, like clean the dishes out with sand. We'd just chill out for a little bit. They'd do everything for us, and then get back on our camels and keep going. They all had different personalities. It was really cool. Robin Gordon style. Yeah, so we came to some sand dunes and set up camp for the night, and this is New Year's Eve. So they cooked us a meal, and people brought food, and a bunch of other people showed up, and they lit a huge bonfire, and we had a big New Year's Eve celebration. That was really fun. There was like a German lady that came, and we got to talk to a bunch. She was really interesting. And it was pretty cold out, and that pink blanket is my blanket that I brought, and it just disappeared, and I saw this guy wearing it all night. I was really cold at night and wanted it, but he kept it all night and slept with it. I got to watch the sunset.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So this is New Year's Eve day, or I mean New Year's Day, 2015. We woke up pretty cold, and they brought us hot chai tea in bed. Robin was freezing. They were all worried that she was sick or something because she wouldn't get out of bed. Then we tried to warm up with the fire. They cooked us a nice breakfast. And then we got back on our camels for the ride back, which it was freezing this day, like super windy, really cold. Yeah, it was a little devastating. Jessie had some camel problems. She felt like she was going to fall off the entire time because her camel was kind of leaning forward. We were all pretty sore.
It's called clicking the flag. That's the problem. I'm like my brother.
So then we got back to Dulcimer and just had the day here. We walked around, ate breakfast at a nice hotel. Oh, and we went back to the hotel we arrived at in the middle of the night. We went back there to grab our luggage, and we were like, oh, here, like, let us pay you for that. And they're like, no, you don't need to pay us. Just have some chai tea, like, take your stuff, and you guys are all fine to go. So that was really nice of them.
Satellite
Didn't
dishes
even
on.
make us pay for staying there.
Yeah.
Or holding our luggage for 2 days.
Yeah. These are just some kids we met in Dulcimer. Little baby pigs in trash. We got to do some shopping in a fort, and we went into the store to buy like these kind of India pants. And the guy gave us all chai tea, and then took probably like 200 articles of clothing, like scarves and shirts and pants out. He offered us like all these different pants to buy, but I think we probably altogether bought like 20 pairs of pants. Then me and Gabby got some more henna. This took like 15 minutes each, but it was really awesome henna. Some kids we met.
This lady's the oldest lady I've ever met. She's 105. And when I was walking by, the man asked me if I knew of any elderly men to marry this woman. And I go, do you know what she's asking? And he says, I don't know. I go, you better tell her. And so he told her, and she picked up her cane. Went to hit him over the head. This is just all sights and forts.
Yeah, there's cows everywhere.
These are centos where the kings are, their ashes are buried, and all their wives have to jump in the fire with them, so they're all buried together.
Jump or be pushed.
This was just a little like lake, probably like the cleanest water we saw the whole time.
Yeah, this is our last time together with Gabby, because she flew out of Delhi, we flew out of Mumbai. And we took this bus ride, another 12-hour bus ride. Supposedly they drove very fast and it wasn't that long. And they had compartments over where everyone sat. If you paid more, you could sleep. And so we got in these compartments, and at one point it was like midnight. Sarah and Jesse really had to go to the bathroom. They stopped somewhere. They said, Anita, make sure the bus doesn't leave. And so they woke me up. So I get up, and I didn't kind of see where they went. They got off the bus, and pretty soon the guy's one, pointing to his watch, and he's starting to move. I go, wait, you can't leave. And then some other guys, younger guys, are kind of arguing with him, I think on my side. And one of them jumps off, and we're starting to move. And I'm like, I run back to my compartment. I grab my purse. It has my passport and money, because they didn't have anything. They didn't have passport or money. I didn't have time to say anything to the other three who were sound asleep. And I just ran to the front. I was prepared to jump off the bus because I couldn't leave them at midnight. And I'm just about ready to do this when I see them running down the street, and the man sees him, but he doesn't stop. He's still going, you know, and he's starting to go over into traffic. And so this other guy's running with them. And they hopped on. We weren't moving too fast when they hopped on, but anyway. That was my scariest experience. And Casey, she slept through a lot, but then had to go to the bathroom, so she just opened up her window.
I had no chance of being left behind.
So we got to the when we got to the airport, because we got there like an hour and a half early, and we were all sound asleep because we had our alarm set. And so all of a sudden, bam, 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 on the window to our compartment, get out! You know, we're all like grabbing our stuff and trying to jump off the bus and get out. And we made it to the airport. We sent Gabby to Delhi. From that airport, we flew into Mumbai, which is a beautiful airport, and spent our last day in Mumbai. And I had set up a little tour, and Mumbai is really modern. It's westernized. And this is, the British were there, so lots of British influence for buildings. It was so much traffic, we didn't get out to do a lot of stuff because it took us forever to get anywhere. But I said, oh, there's an old fishing village we want to go to. Well, he couldn't find it, so he dropped us off here, which was a fishing village. And Sarah looks down and goes, that's the Indian Ocean, I want to touch it. So we go down through all this human feces. It was really they were in poverty, in deep poverty in this area. And this little girl came up to us, she was cute, and another couple boys that wanted to trade us coins for a shrimp they had got. Anyhow. And I don't think you really stuck your foot in, did you?
She did.
Oh, you did.
It was
It's pretty much like trash water.
But it was interesting because this was their little fishing community. There was little boats. There was a guy like with carving on his boat. So it was pretty interesting. It wasn't a touristy spot whatsoever. We were just kind of lost. And then our driver took us to this beach where we just wandered along the beach. Now here you'd see boys, young men and women together, which was really unusual. Usually all the girls hung out together, all the men hung out together, but there was couples here. So it was very different influence in Mumbai compared to Delhi. Delhi's very old-fashioned Eastern, and Mumbai is modern. So I got a cheap ticket home. It was Saudi Arabia Airlines. So we flew out of Mumbai, and the only problem with this was we had 17 hours in Saudi Arabia. So Sarah's ready for our 17-hour stay. You can switch, huh? So we flew over Saudi Arabia. That's pretty much what it's like, just forever. It's incredible. But we started seeing bunkers and military stuff, and this is Jeddah, which is on the Red Sea. And this is where we had our 17 hours. And Jeddah's only 40 miles from Mecca. So you can imagine how many Muslims come from all the Muslim nations here because they want to go to Mecca. So the whole night in the airport was packed with hundreds and hundreds of people. Very interesting people watching. They put us transit people in a dark room where the windows were all covered. There was nothing, you couldn't see anything. And we piled up, well, we played a lot of hacky sack. We went to this other area, but and we piled up on the floor, fell asleep, and then they wanted us out there like 4 hours before our flight, so they woke us up, and it was really interesting. And so, and I picked up a newspaper in Saudi Arabia, and guess who's on the back? Sarah Palin. An article about Sarah Palin. And so then we flew Jeddah all the way back to LA. So we flew LA to Japan, Malaysia, and over. So we actually circumnavigated the whole entire world on the trip. And it was wonderful. Made it back to LA, and everybody split up and went their ways from there. So that was our adventure. What's that? It was 4 weeks. Yeah. Yeah, and we have delicious cardamom cookies. Barkley, I could try one. They're really good that Robin and her family made. And then other things to look at up here. Did you want to present this? Oh, okay. This is for Shelley's baby. And if you want to see the marble with the inlay, we've got a few here posters in a cup that's got an elephant on it, but this is what Taj Mahal looks like. So, yeah, come join us. Any other questions?
Anita, did you?